Okay, so moving on to the global skills for speed, so C under column C. So skill C1, speed maintenance. This is something that gets marked very often on a road test, and it says to be successful, choose a speed that is consistent within the speed limit and is appropriate for the conditions, right? So don't be driving 30 in a 50 zone when there's no need, right? So it's considered too slow. Drive the correct speed at the correct time. You don't want to be driving too slow, and of course you don't want to be driving too fast. So speed control is super, super important. C2, rolling stops. This is another common failure on the road test. It says bring the vehicle to a complete stop when required at stop signs, red lights, and when exiting parking lots, right? So very often I find some students will want to do a rolling stop or a taxi stop or a California stop, whatever you want to call it. It's not correct. So when you see a red object, right, so red stop sign, red light, you need to make a full stop. And when you're exiting a parking lot, whether there's a stop sign there or not, if there's a sidewalk in front of you, you need to make a complete stop, check carefully before you proceed. C3, amber light. When a light changes to amber, same thing as yellow, you must stop before entering the intersection unless you're unable to safely stop in time. So what this means is stop for yellow when it's safe to do so. Right. Sometimes what happens with students is this: they see yellow and they've read something similar to this, and then they slam on their brakes, and it's like, well, yellow means stop if it's safe. It doesn't say stop. So you have to check, see who's behind you before you attempt to stop your vehicle for a yellow light. Make sure the car behind you is not following too closely. Make sure that if you're gonna brake, that the brake is smooth and predictable to other road users. However, when you're coming up to make a right turn, for example, at an intersection, maybe as you're approaching the intersection, the light is green. As you're getting closer to the intersection, the light turns to yellow. If you can safely stop, you need to change your plan and not complete the turn, stop behind the stop line, and then proceed when it's safe to do so. So what I'm trying to say is make sure that if you can safely stop for the yellow, you're doing that. C4, acceleration, deceleration. Again, another common one on the test that gets marked often. You must accelerate and decelerate smoothly without stopping or slowing unnecessarily. So sometimes students come up to an intersection and stop when they don't have a stop sign, there's no one there, there's no need to be stopping, or they brake and slow down a lot for a crosswalk that no one's coming up to use. And so these things are unpredictable to the car behind you. So make sure you're looking ahead so you can plan ahead and your acceleration, deceleration is smooth. Same idea, you don't want to rush up to 50 kilometers an hour. The light just turned green, you're sitting at your stop line. You shouldn't suddenly rush up to 50. It should be predictable, smooth. The examiner should fall asleep in your vehicle from how smoothly you're driving. This is not to be mistaken for driving slow on the road test. C5, shifting. So this is if you're taking a manual vehicle, a standard transmission vehicle to the road test, you must select the most efficient gear and change between gears safely and smoothly. Do not change gears or forward to reverse while in motion, and do not coast in neutral or with the clutch in manual transmission. So again, there are certain rules that you need to follow when you're taking a manual transmission vehicle to the road test, and it's pretty well noted here. C6, rolling back. So you must use the correct brake and gear control to prevent rolling back on a hill. This generally is not an issue for an automatic vehicle, as long as you're changing from your brake pedal to your gas pedal promptly. You shouldn't let the car roll back too much. It pertains mostly to a manual vehicle where if you're not careful, you can roll back. C7, other. So this is for any other speed control errors not listed in this section. I've never seen really this marked on anyone's sheet. C8 covers brakes. So when you see a potential hazard, take your foot off the accelerator and cover the brake in preparation to stop. Also keep the brake applied when stopped. So this happens with generally brand new drivers where they're not looking far enough to spot the potential hazards and they're not covering their brake in time. So we're going towards that hazard and I'm like, hey, you see that deer? They're like, oh, where? Or it's like, hey, you see that pedestrian coming up to the crosswalk? So you have to kind of guide them, but you need to be looking further down the road so you're ready to cover the brake in time. C9, parking brake. So apply the parking brake when parking and fully release it before moving. This is another common one students forget, and it's part because sometimes their parents aren't using their parking brake in the vehicle, so they haven't become accustomed to anytime I park my vehicle somewhere, I need to apply my parking brake. And this holds true for the road test as well, of course.